what this is. Let us see.
Really?
Yeah, I think we can start now, I guess.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah, let me spend some couple of minutes introducing you to the present today's audience. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I hope I'm audible to all of you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, great. I'm Belesh and I'm the managing editor of MycoAsia. Today we have Professor Suryanarayanan. He's going to take the second class under the MycoAsia Master Class series, actually. In the first class, he talked about some interesting facets about endophytic fungi, and there were some really good discussion. There were very interesting questions. But today, Professor Suri will talk about how to publish research papers, and I believe he will start with how to get new ideas or how to improve new ideas in how to improve your existing ideas in mycology, then convert into an experiment and then publish the result in the form of a research paper, and what are the things one could consider while selecting a journal. As Professor Suri informed me that he would probably talk for 70 minutes. After that, we will have a very good long discussion for 30 minutes if you have so many questions. There were two known surprises. Number one, at the end of the this whole session, we will share the feedback link. If you submit the feedback information and request for a certificate, we can issue the certificate of participation. Second known surprise is that if you are very active, asking questions in the chat box or during the discussions and asking some good questions, probably 5 active participants will receive Amazon vouchers, actually. Before I hand over the platform or transfer this platform to Professor Suri, I would like to give a brief introduction of Professor Suri. I will read it from the my write-up. It is my great pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Professor Suryanarayanan, fondly known as Professor Suri. With a career spanning over 3 decades, Professor Suri has established himself as a luminary in the field of fungal biology and biotechnology. Professor Suri's research has significantly contributed to our understanding of fungal endophytes and their potential applications. His work on the fungal symbionts of marine sponges and their bioactive metabolites has opened new avenues for drug discovery. His extensive studies on the internal microbiota of marine macroalgae have shed light on the diversity and biotechnological potential of these microorganisms. Professor Suri is a prolific writer, and he has kindly agreed to share his experiences and insights with us today in a presentation titled "How to Publish Research Papers." Professor's publications are a testament to his dedication to advancing science and knowledge. His works have been cited extensively, contributing to the global conversation on fungal biology and its applications. But beyond his academic and research accomplishments, Professor Suri is known for his passion for teaching and mentoring the next generation of scientists. And today's session is an evidence for that, in support of that, actually. His commitment to education and ability to inspire students make him a beloved figure in the academic community. And in the last masterclass, everybody enjoyed interacting with him, and he was very patient enough to answer most of the questions which were allowed by me. Without further ado, please let us welcome Professor Suri to the stage once again. Sir, Professor Suri, we are truly honored to have you with us today. Thank you so much. Over to you, Professor Suri.
Thank you, Dr. Shanai, for this wonderful introduction. Before I start, I sincerely congratulate and appreciate the efforts of Dr. Shanai in bringing together young minds. This type of activity which he is undertaking is actually needed for galvanizing youngsters. That's great work, Shanai. I'm not exaggerating. We need more people like you to do this. So let me go straight to the top. I'm going to tell you something about how to publish research papers. Now, To most of you, you would have already published a lot of papers. Um, Let me tell you one important thing. As scientists, irrespective of our experience, we should have our ears and mind open for receiving new ideas. We don't know where they can come from. So even some information which appears to be, well, this is already, I know it already, but we do not know what can stimulate certain new ideas. Therefore, it would be nice to have open mind and ears. With this background, let me start this talk. Now, significant portions of my talk are taken from these three sources. And of the three sources, I would strongly recommend this book, How to Write and Publish a Scientific Paper by Robert Day. There are many editions of it. I am referring to the old edition, but there are new editions. This is a wonderful book. So I would suggest that all scientists have a look at it. I mean, this is because two things. This is Robert Day is a microbiologist or a biologist. Therefore, all the examples he gives are from bio, so we understand them easily. And then he gives, because he has been a reviewer of many papers and he has been in the editorial board of several journals, the examples that he gives are actually, I mean, what shall I say, true examples. So you will be surprised, and that will really go into your head. So that's one thing. Now, what are the key elements of publishing? The first thing is ethical issues. I'm not touching that. Okay, let me tell you. So ethical issues, structure of a paper, components of a paper, journal selection. So broadly speaking, these are the key elements of, when I'm going to publish a paper, I look into the ethical issues, I look into the structure of the paper, I look at the components of the paper, and then I select a journal. Now, of these four elements, I will be, in this talk will be concentrating on the second and third point. Ethical issues is a separate issue altogether and needs a separate lecture if that's possible. Okay. So now let's go to structure of a research paper. Generally, most of the journals nowadays follow this IMRAD structure. What is this IMRAD? Introduction, followed by materials and methods, then results, and discussion. IMRAD. So when you see a published paper, when you go through that, you see this title, authors, introduction, title, author, abstract maybe, then keywords, methods, results, and discussion. Yeah. But when you write your paper, it need not be in this order. This is really important because see, if you look at it, a good researcher should have curiosity, analytical ability, determination, collaboration with others who are having expertise in different fields to make your research more meaningful. And then comes communication. This is with reference to writing the paper, communication. I may be a good scientist with the excellent curiosity, analytical ability, determination, collaboration. But if I am not good at communication, if I lack that ability, then when I write a paper and submit it, invariably it would get rejected. I may have good results, the results that are good enough to add to existing knowledge. But because of my lack of good writing ability, I'm unable to structure a paper out of it and publish it. That shouldn't happen. We are handicapped. We have excellent results, but the world doesn't know about it because of my lack of communication skill. How to improve that? First thing is, when I have the results, I know that I have something new, I have something interesting, it can make a good paper. But then there is a mental block. And how do see, because I am used to my work, but when I publish it, it's going to be new to others. So I should design it in such a way that it fulfills all these aspects of satisfying a reader. Now, how to go about doing this? You always have this mental block. Where do I start? Then how do I proceed to write the paper? I have the results. So this mental block you have to overcome. There are different ways of overcoming this, and I am presenting here the model proposed by O'Connor and Holmquist. That seems to be a good model. It works very well for many of us. So that model of removing the mental block or initiating you to write, to begin writing, is the one that we are going to discuss. Okay, so once again, if you see a published research paper, you are able to first you see the title, then you see the authors, then it goes on. Abstract, keywords, introduction, materials, method, results, figures and tables, discussion, references, acknowledgements. Okay, this is how a paper is usually designed when you see a printed paper. But when you start writing your own paper, you don't have to start. It's better that you don't follow this order. Then what order to follow? According to Connor, writing the paper need not be in this order. So he suggests, or they suggest, you begin with first figures, graphs, and tables. So you have your results. So you decide which of my results would be better if presented as tables, which one of them could be presented as graphs, which one of them could be presented as figures. You see, the same data could be presented as table or as a graph. Yeah, so there are examples for that. We cannot go into that now. I gave a talk on that to Indian Academy of Science people. So you see, you have to decide which is better. So quickly, what you can do is you take your data, put it as a table. I mean, draw a table out of it, and then draw a graph. You also compare which catches the eye quickly, which is able to throw your results quickly out, which catches the eye. So once you decide, okay, this set of data I'm going to present as table. It's not fit as a graph. This one I'm going to present it as a graph. When you decide graph, among graphs there are different types, as you know, bar graph and then pie diagram. You have to choose which one. There are logic for this to choose the right type of graph. And then if you want, you can present some figures and all that. So you prepare these things first. So once you prepare these, you sort of get some idea. Okay, so here are my data. I can see them, tables, graph, and all that. So then you have them, and then you go to next. The next part you write is the materials and methods. The methods that you follow in doing your research. Perhaps easy to write that. And then the materials that you used, and all those things. So you write that, and then you write the results. So now, when you write the results now, because you have already put some of your data as either as a figure or a graph or as a table, writing the results would be easier already, because those figures and graphs reflect a part of your results. Therefore, writing the results would be easier. Then you write the discussion, then references, then you write the introduction. Because, and we will go into the part of the introduction. Introduction is the one, the term itself says that it introduces your work to the reader. Why you undertook this. So if you write it later, after writing the reference and all that, By the time, because you have written the reference, you have written the results, you have written the discussion, and you have written the materials, methods, figures, and all that, you can design the introduction in such a way that it is exact. Then you talk about the title. Finally, you write the abstracts and keywords. And this method is really very practical. Yeah. Now, let's go in the structure, let's go one after the other. Title. So you should remember the title is actually the advertisement for your paper, just like the posters they paste for cinema. The, the title, I may have good results, but supposing I write a title which is not very captivating, people may even, "Oh, okay, this is a routine thing. I don't have to go through this." Once you can decide whether to read a paper or not just based on the title itself. I'm sure you would have had that experience because title describes the paper's content clearly and precisely. And nowadays, the search engines are there, Google search and all these things. These search engines, they project your work to others based on the accuracy of the title. So the title of the paper should be accurate. So when somebody types some words, your paper gets projected. It says that so and so, this is the title. So one of the ideas to have a good title is do not use abbreviations and jargon in titles. Like, for example, I said anti-malarial compound isolated from leaves of M. indica. Now, instead of M. indica, you do not use abbreviation, right? Mangifera indica, because if somebody types Mangifera indica in the Google and then looks for search for, it will project your paper. Nobody will type M. indica. Okay, so never use abbreviations, and then don't use jargon. Jargons are terms which are common in English, but will have a special meaning for the scientists of a particular subject. For example, if you template. In general English, it will mean something. Model means something, but for a biologist, the template is different. Model could be different. So such word. Then time. So time is for all of us. Time means, but then for theoretical physics, it might mean something else. So such jargons should be avoided in the title. Okay. So let's see some examples. All this. Very interesting example. So suppose I say studies on E. coli. I'm making two mistakes here. One, the title is too short. It is not very helpful to the reader. What was the study on? Is it taxonomic study, genetics, biochemical, medical? What is it? And then what is E. coli? Well, of course, N. crassa, A. niger, E. coli. These are very common. So even if you write E. coli, people would know. But then we can't do this for lesser known taxa. So this is too brief or too short a title. It doesn't tell anything about it. So this is not a good thing. Or okay, so you can expand the title, but it should not be too long. For example, you see this. This was a paper in published in 1896 on the addition to the method of microscopic research by a new way of producing color contrast between an object and its background, or between definite parts of the object. Well, in early 1900s, this was the fashion of. I'm not finding fault, but then these things the referee would reject nowadays because it's too long and expensive. Then So what's a good title? Let us say action of streptomycin on Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Well, good, but you can improve on it, because when you say action, what action? So here, if you can improve inhibition of growth of Mycobacterium tuberculosis by streptomycin. Instead of action of streptomycin, is streptomycin increasing the growth of Mycobacterium or decreasing, inhibiting? It's not clear here, but here, inhibition of growth of Mycobacterium tuberculosis by streptomycin. It's very clear, it is short, and it is informative. People who are interested, by reading the title, you know what the work is on, and then you can choose to read it or not. So remember, the title is the advertisement for your paper. The title will be read by thousands of people. It should induce them to proceed to read the paper. Once they see the title on the net or in their website, oh, it's an interesting title. Let's see what the paper says. So the best title would have fewest possible words which clearly describe the contents of the paper. So that's about the title. So yeah, let's see some example. Fewest possible words which adequately, which clearly describe the contents of the paper. Here one, leaf photosynthesis. Do endophytes have a say? Is the title. So do endophytes of the leaf, do they contribute to photosynthesis? So here, leaf photosynthesis. Do endophytes have a say? Now here, they do. So okay. So there are fungi which are present in hypersaline environments. They are strictly salt required, so they are obligately saline. And reporting such fungi, and it's very interesting. There are many, some yeasts and some filamentous fungi which have been described to survive in high salt concentrations. And without high salt, they don't grow. So they have an obligate requirement for salt and very high salt concentration. So there are many papers on such describing new species. But then what is interesting is there are also fungi in those high salt concentration, which don't require high salt for their growth. They can grow in normal conditions as well. And they are not just resting spores in high salt concentration, they are actually growing there. So, which means that these fungi, which are which don't require salt for their growth, but can grow in high salt as well, they are not usually, they're taken for granted. Oh, okay. But people are more interested in hypersaline fungi, which require high salt for their growth. But what is interesting is these tolerant fungi have a wider range of, niche. They can grow in low salt, zero salt, high salt. So how do they get adapted? Are different genes expressed? And what are the type of enzymes that are secreted? How do they, how do they manage the change in the external osmotic? How do they interact with different because this particular fungus, when it is growing in low salt ecosystem, it will be facing different types of microorganisms. It will be challenging in different types of microorganisms when compared with the same fungus growing in hypersaline. How do they interact? So there is a paper which it's a review paper saying that you should study these fungi as well. Don't ignore them. For that, the title we chose was "They Too Serve, Could Tolerate and Survive." Don't think only the obligately hypersaline are important. These fungi are also they tolerate and survive, and they may also serve. So that is the need to study halotolerant fungi to appreciate the role in fungal in ecosystems. Now, we chose this title based on Milton's poem, who says in one of his poems, they also serve who only stand and wait. So, something like that, make it, what shall I say, attractive. The referees and as well as the editors were, they said, the first sentence they said was, oh, they've chosen a nice title. And then see, look at this. Seed treatment with systemic fungicides. Time for review. Then you should be wondering by reading this title. Seed treatment with systemic fungicides is a very common practice in as we all know, in crop management. Time for review. Why should it be reviewed? So it will make you wonder. So those are the that is something about the title. Authors, I'm not going into the details of this. Normally we include only those who have made some contribution to the research as authors. Though, because say we have also seen some examples from some labs. So one paper is published in which somebody's name is included as author. Then later on, that paper has some problem, maybe plagiarism, it is withdrawn. Then one of the authors says, I don't know anything about this. No, if my name is added as an author, I am responsible for that publication. So they have to publicly defend the data and conclusions, the authors. So that is very important. So we should not, if somebody says, hey, I'll include you as an author, you should always say, did I contribute anything? Please don't. And then nowadays we have to identify the corresponding author who will be responsible for answering. Now we go to the abstract. Abstract is a mini version of the paper. And so, as you know, it is a brief summary of the introduction. It should be the brief summary of introduction, methods, results, and discussion. So the reader decides whether to go ahead and read the paper or not, whether to go ahead and read the whole article or not, based on the abstract. That is why it is best to write the abstract at the end, last, after you prepare all writing everything. Because if you have an abstract in mind and you write it, but when you proceed to write the paper, you would realize that the abstract has to be changed. So it is better that once after writing the complete paper, then you write the abstract, so that whatever you have written in the paper is accurately reflected in the abstract. And remember, an abstract should not contain anything which is not stated in the results or discussion. It should be complete, it should have all the information, and it should be brief. And remember to write it in past tense, because it describes the work done. So we should always write it in past tense. Even generally, when we write our paper, all our the present work should be written in past tense, and then the references, or if you're referring to other articles, even if it is your own work, then it can be in sentence. And always remember that an abstract is published by itself. That is, and when you go to the Google search and do some terms you use, and then you get the papers, you're able to see, even if you don't see the full paper, you're able to see the abstracts of all the paper. Now there are restrictions. You got to pay for some of these articles to be viewed, but the abstract is free. So you get a lot of information from the abstract. Therefore, your abstract should be very clear and should clearly explain what the paper is about. An abstract should contain all information necessary for the reader to know. Like, for example, what the objectives of the study were. What were the objectives based on which the study was started? How the study was done? What results were obtained? And how significant the results are. Which will tell you that whether the new results, whether the results are adding anything new to the existing knowledge, whether it's whether it shows something which has not been already explored, or which will induce people to work in certain direction. But remember, it looks great, but it should be short, brief. That is the challenge. Keywords, we always add keywords. The keywords have become very important, especially in the light of the search engines. So you should the keywords make the databases search of the article very easy. So you should use intelligent keywords which will capture your paper in an internet search. That leads to more citations of your paper. So how to do this? After completing the paper, what you do is you stop being an author. Think from the point of view of a reader of the paper. What keywords would the reader search for? That would, retrieve your article. So you should think. And then many people do this mistake. In keywords, they usually repeat the words which are presented in the title. No, you shouldn't do that, because anyway, the title will be available in the internet. And if you're using the same words in the title as keywords, it's not going to increase the spotting of your paper. So you should use some variations of the term. Suppose you work on the backbone. So you say something about the amount of calcium in the backbone of, let's say, females before and after, what is that? Menopause. Suppose that is the title of your paper. Backbone is the main thing. In the keywords, you use spine or a vertebral column, which refer to this. So if I type backbone, your paper will be recovered, or I would be able to see that in the internet. Instead, if I write spine, still it will pick your paper. If I type vertebral column, all these two mean the same as this, but then since you use different words in as keywords, it will fetch your paper. Instead of this, if you write backbone as one of the keywords, the chances of getting your paper gets reduced because already the title has it. So another way to decide that the keywords would be, you type the key once you have done your once you have written your paper. You choose some words which are fitting in the paper, and then type those words in a search engine and check if the results that show up are similar to the subject of your paper. So that way also you can choose suitable keywords. Examples. So there is a paper, chitinolytic enzymes from endophytic fungi. So the keywords were endophytes, because endophytic fungi, there are endophytic bacteria, but general terms are endophytes. Therefore, if somebody types endophyte, that can also fetch this paper. Chitinase, because here we are saying chitinolytic enzymes. There are different types of chitinolytic enzymes. For example, chitinase, chitosanase. And then chitin is the substrate. Therefore, you put that. It's not here in the title. Therefore, chitin. And chitosan is one of the products. So you put that. So if they type any one of this, it could fetch this paper. Here, Lacaria, some species, a new species from tropical India based on morphology and molecular phylogeny. So they have chosen keywords like agaricus, Basidiomycotina, and then, oops. And then hidden and GSE, taxonomy, phylogeny, it is repeated here. That's okay, one of the words, but here, see this, the gut-associated Klebsiella species of the apple snail produces multiple polysaccharide degrading enzymes. That is the title. But the keywords given are apple snail, Klebsiella, polysaccharide degrading. These are already there in the title. So avoid this. You have choose different words, probably explaining these things. Instead of apple snail, maybe you can put the scientific term for that. Okay. Now, so far what we have seen, the title should be catchy, and then the abstract should be telling you the detail. Now, when I was in the Amazon, I came to know about the people. Briefly, I'll tell you. See, there is this rubber tree, which we now know is plantation in some of these Southeast Asian countries. Yeah, and also in Sri Lanka, maybe in small certain places in India as well. But originally, the tree belonged to the Amazon forest. It was native to the Amazon forest, and the latex from the tree was collected and from the Amazon forest and sold by certain merchants who were in the Amazon forest to the rest of the Europe, to many other countries. Now. The problem was they couldn't grow rubber tree in a plantation. Reason being, when the trees are close together in a plantation, of course, it's a monoculture. You will be having the trees of rubber tree in several acres. But when the rubber trees were grown together, and there was a fungus which infected and which spread and killed all the rubber trees very quickly. So they said, okay, let us not have a monoculture or plantation of rubber tree. We will go to the forest, and in the forest, wherever we see a healthy tree, from that we will take the latex. Amazon forest is very dense, and the diversity of trees is very high. So there will be one rubber tree here, another rubber tree maybe several miles away or kilometers away. So they engage the local people, and they made them slaves, and then they were tortured, and these slaves to go and get the rubber. And some people who did this export of, because the Amazon River is as deep as certain parts of the ocean, huge ships, liners could come in, collect the latex, and go back to rubber latex and go back to Europe. Because of this, because of the rubber monopoly, some of the people in Amazon became very rich. They became so rich that they used to take a ship, go to Paris for having their haircut, and then they used to send their laundry to France for haircut. So they're so rich. But what happened? There was one, and then the cruelty about the slavery and all that. But there was one, you know about Hooker, Bentham Hooker. That Hooker was in Royal Botanic Gardens, in charge of Royal Botanic Gardens, and he engaged one person, one Britisher by name Vivekananda, to go and get these seeds of rubber. He actually stole the seeds of rubber without informing the government in Brazil, and then he brought them back to Hooker. And who sent these seeds to British colonies in those days, in Southeast Asia, in many places like Indonesia, all those places, and they started growing this rubber, and they got the latex out of it, and suddenly the merchants and their rich life in Amazon collapsed, and many of them committed suicide and all this. And you also see during this time the development of the accidental finding of Goodyear, Charles Goodyear, about vulcanization and all that. So we described all this in this paper, From Forest to Plantation, a brief history of the rubber tree. That's the title. Now you quickly see this abstract. This article describes how the rubber tree, which grows widely in the Amazon forest, came under global focus due to industrial revolution. From 1860 to 1913, since the tree was found only in the Amazon forest, the entire world depended on a few business magnates of that region for rubber. The rubber barons enslaved many local people to extract rubber from the wildly growing trees in the forest. Since the efforts to grow rubber as plantations failed mainly due to a devastating fungal disease, the rubber slaves recruited to collect rubber latex from the wildly growing trees in the forest went through untold misery. The economy of towns of Amazonas, such as Manaus and Belen, which were located strategically for exporting extracted rubber by ships, boomed. The economy of these towns boomed. This monopoly of Amazon's rubber trade crashed due to the British, which itself is an intriguing story. The travel of rubber tree from Amazon forest to the then southeast British colonies to be grown as plantations encompasses many fields, including biology, sociology, industry, economics, and environment. Okay. Now, this is the title. This is the abstract. The keywords: Amazonia, biopiracy, Charles Goodyear, Hevia brasiliensis, Henry Wickham, South American leaf blight disease. So this is an example which tells you how you can frame an interesting title, how the abstract can be brief at the same time, brings whatever you have, it compresses whatever you have written in the paper, and how the keywords are good enough to fetch your article when they do a web search. Okay, now we go to introduction. The introduction should clearly state the problem that you are investigated and the reasons for conducting the research. Well, then it should summarize the relevant research to provide context. You should say what others have done so far, and then what is it that you have done in relation to what others have done. So state how your work differs from already existing work, published work. Then you also, in the introduction, you state, you identify, these are the things that I am answering here, unexplored or whatever. And explain what other findings, if any, you are challenging or extending. There may be somebody who would have said something. You are saying, no, this may not be correct. Your work is pointing to that. Or it may add to that. It may say, I am supporting this work. So that can happen. So that is what you should do in your introduction. And briefly in the introduction, you also briefly describe the experiment, the hypothesis, and the research questions that you are raising. And then finally, a little bit about the experimental design or the method you use. You don't have to be very brief about the method because there is a separate section on methods. So the introduction is designed in such a way to tell the others, why is this study of scientific interest and what is your objective? That introduction should discuss the results and conclusions of previously published studies to help explain why the current study is of scientific interest. It should emphasize your specific contribution to the topic. And the last sentence of the introduction should be a statement of objectives and a statement of hypothesis. This will be a good transition for the reader to move smoothly to the next section, namely methods, which will explain how you did this work. Okay, coming to methods. Methods, as you know, it's a section which will provide all the methodological details which you used. And so it should be in such a way that if I want to repeat your work, I should be able to do that in my lab by seeing your methods. Oh, this is the method he has followed, so let me do that. So it should explain the steps you used in your study, and it should be able to, people should be able to replicate your work by studying this. And if you have some new methodology, you should explain that in detail. If it is a methodology which is already known, it is you can briefly state it, or you can say we followed the method of so and so and give a reference. Yeah. Results. This section presents the results of the experiment, but you don't interpret the meaning that comes in the discussion. So the trick of writing a good results section is knowing what information to include and what information not to include. You will not present the raw data in results. You will summarize the data with text, tables, and figures. So you should choose the best way to present your data, whether figure, graph, if so, what type of graph, table, how to organize a table, So that so when you organize a table, when you write a table, you can write it in different forms so that you can simplify even very large data. You can see one of our papers. We have a typical example of studying endophytes in 240 plus species of plants belonging to 60 family. And then what are all the fungi what are all the fungal genera that are present as endophytes in the leaves of these 240 plus plants? And which of them were dominant? All these things you see in that one table. You can see that in current science. So that's a good example of how to bring together very large data in a table, concise and precise. Okay. So the tables objectively present your findings and they explain what you found, and the results also show that. And the result shows that how your results are new and how they are contributing to the existing body of knowledge. And you should follow a logical, stepwise process sequence based on the tables and figures that you are given which will help, which will tell how your findings answer the question that you have raised in the introduction or the hypothesis that you have proposed in the introduction. Yeah. Finally, discussion and conclusion. Describe what your results mean in the context of what was already known about the subject. Discussion is the one where you are, very broadly speaking, you say, so far, many people have done this and they have found this. What I find in my present work is this. So it is either supporting the earlier findings or it is contradicting the earlier findings. So that will come in the discussion. Explain how your work has actually added to the body of scientific knowledge that is existing and how your work has moved the scientific knowledge forward. Those things will come in discussion. Do not extend your conclusions beyond what is directly supported by your research. I mean, don't include far-fetched speculations. You can speculate. You can say, this could lead to this. More studies are needed to see if this is what is happening. I mean, that way, you can speculate a little further. And also, at the end of the discussion or near in the conclusion, you can say, though we have shown all this, it would be interesting or something like that. If you can do more work in this direction or in some other, it could answer a few more questions. So you are outlining the next steps for further study for others in this direction. References, whenever you draw upon previously published work, you must acknowledge the source by adding a reference. The information not from your experiment and not common knowledge should be recognized by a citation. Avoid references that are difficult to find. There are references which may be in some godforsaken journal. Don't cite them. Avoid listing related references that are not important to the study. I see. Let's say I'm writing a paper. I already have 20 publications. Some of them are not related to this topic, but I want to cite my own paper to show that I have already done something. So they may be unrelated to this study, So do not bring them in. A few. Now comes the most important thing. English is not our mother tongue. Even I see that Americans and Britishers also commit a lot of mistakes when they write scientific papers. So a few points about the language. The division of this is very important. A paper might get rejected not only because it is not written properly or the results are not whatever, but it can also get rejected because of the inadequate language. They can just say send it back. No. So in general, sentences in scientific prose should be short. And also you should split your paper into relevant paragraphs to appreciate the sense of writing. And avoid all these superfluous phrases, say, such as, like for example, it is also important to bear in mind the following considerations. You know, your paper will be better even without this sentence. It doesn't mean anything. So you can omit this and replace by a single word. And also try to use familiar, clear, precise words rather than vague words. Cheaper. See, they're more economically viable. This option is more economically viable. Don't say that. This is, you just say this is cheaper. So don't say ongoing situation. It doesn't mean anything. Even the sentence would be meaningful even without you remove that ongoing situation. Still, the sentence will be meaningful. There are many more examples. I'll give you a few more, which the reviewers are keen about. Tense of the sentence and the mood. Write in past tense. Your work should be written in past tense. And when you are referring to others' work, that will be in present tense. That is the general rule. And always use active voice as far as possible rather than passive voice. For example, don't write the food was eaten by the pig. Just write the pig ate the food. You're saving words, you're saving space, and also the meaning doesn't change and the meaning is more affirmative. The active voice is easier to read and reduces the sentence length. Materials and methods should be written in past tense also. Yeah. The experiment was designed in the form of a 6x6 Latin square. Results should be also in past tense. When a high protein diet was fed to the rabbits, they grew rapidly. Okay. As I told you, you should avoid redundancy and verbiage. So I have this, what do you call this, hot air stove or whatever, micro, that hot plate. So you see the caution that they have written. Caution: please ensure hot vessels do not come in contact with the control panel to avoid damages. If I were that fellow, I would write this one. This is my statement. Contact with hot vessels will damage control panel. Why do you want to beg? Please ensure. Many people don't know the meaning of ensure. You do this. When you do this, it becomes straightforward. And the sentence is small. So in this place, you can put it. And because the sentence is small, you can enlarge the size of the, what do you call it, the letters. So it's very easily seen. And here, the same hashtag, I think. It says, the ceramic plate is hot after cooking. Please don't touch with your hand. Generally, people touch a thing only with their hand, not with their tongue or nose. And please, why do you beg? I would say ceramic plate is hot after cooking. Don't touch. This is, you can put this here instead of putting notice and all that. See, when you reduce the number of words, you get more space. You can make it a bigger. And I'm terribly irritated about this. The announcement in all our railway stations for the kind attention of passengers. Come on, the train number 1234 from Chennai to Bangalore is expected to arrive in platform number 4. If I were the announcer, I would say train number 1234 from Chennai to Bangalore will arrive on platform 4. Why do you say see, in a crowded platform, definitely it will only be the passengers who will listen to some announcement, not the people who are selling cakes and banana there. And why kind attention? I have my ticket. I have to take the train when it is ready. So imagine in one station how many trains come per day, and throughout India how many trains will be arriving and leaving in all these thousands of stations in India. So this for the kind attention of passengers, that is a waste of energy. Means electricity, you are paying for that. And not only that, it is translated in the local language as well, plus Hindi. You are wasting a lot of energy. We could save a lot of money on that. So avoid jargons. So you can say, some people know that their writers never do. Instead of do, they always perform. Instead of start, they always initiate. Instead of end, they finalize or terminate. They never make, they fabricate. They never use now at this point of time. So also you should be careful while writing the sentences. This is actually taken from a publication. The pain in the right eye was treated with drug A. Okay. On the second day, it felt better. And on the third day, it disappeared. Now, on the second day, it felt better. That means the eye felt better. On the third day, it disappeared. That they say that the pain disappeared. For me, whether the pain disappeared or the eye disappeared on the third day, not clear. And here, be careful with words. Avoid common errors. I'll give you an example. Varying. This is very commonly used. See, varying is a word which means continuously changing. Instead of various, people use varying. When I say various concentrations, concentrations that do not vary. When you say varying concentrations, the concentrate. See, I use 1 gram of something, then 2 grams, then 5 grams. That means various concentrations. Then if I say varying concentrations, then that 1 gram itself is going to be varied depending on time or whatever. So you should not do that. Here, some published example. A large mass of literature has accumulated on the cell walls of E. coli. Poor bacterium would become too heavy if so much of literature has accumulated on its cell walls. Isolation of antigens from monkeys using electrophoresis. Monkeys are intelligent, but can they do electrophoresis? Isolation of antigens from monkeys using electrophoresis. Is it monkeys using electrophoresis or isolation, antigen isolation by using electrophoresis? Then there are sentences which say, after standing in boiling water for an hour, examine the flask. So you have to stand in water for 1 hour and then you examine the flask. So avoid such statements. Spelling errors. This is in annual review of astronomy and astrophysics in 1963. We rely on theatrical calculations. They meant theoretical. Then tense, past tense, present. Your own work, present work which you are writing must be always in past tense. Your work is not presumed to be established knowledge until it has been published. So it must be in past tense. If you determine that the optimal growth temperature for E. coli was 37, you should say E. coli grew best at 37 degrees C. If you are citing a previous work, somebody's work, or even your own earlier published work, then you can say, you have to say E. coli grows best at 37 C, within bracket, the citation. That is the norm followed. Then always prefer active to passive voice. Don't say lactate was produced by S. aureus. Say S. aureus produced lactate. Singular and plurals. One of the most common errors in scientific papers is the use of plural forms of verbs and singular form. For example, you should say 10 gram of glucose was added. 10 gram was added. It is not 10 grams were added, because you are adding 10 gram of some substance. You weigh 10 grams and you add it. It's just 1 10 gram. But if you say 10 grams were added, that means you are adding 1 gram of it at one time. After half an hour, you are adding 1 more gram of it. Like that, 10 grams are added. Only then you say 10 grams were added. Otherwise, you say 10 gram was added. And then data is actually plural. Datum is singular. Media, plural. Medium, singular. So these are things that you should be careful about. And I'm coming to almost the end of the talk. Now, this is a paper, a memoranda on bacterial motility. The motility of a bacteria is a phenomenon receiving much attention, especially in relation to the structure of a flagella and the effect on it of an antisera. No single explanatory data is available. See how many mistakes are there. It is actually A memorandum. Memoranda is plural. The motility of a bacterium is a phenomenon receiving much attention, especially in relation to the structure of flagell of a flagellum and the effect on it of an antiserum. No single explanatory datum is available. So now, what I usually do before submitting my paper to a journal, especially when it has some, when I find something, when I find some results which are which may not be easily accepted by others, something contradictory to the general things and all that. When I have such papers, I usually send the paper before publication to be reviewed by, I review it 2 times myself, and then I send it to 1 or 2 experts in the field, and I request them, can you go through this and please offer your comments? They generally, they accept. Most of them say yes. Nobody has said no to me so far. And then they send back saying that here are some of the lacunae, because it is your work, you will be viewing it in one direction, and when it is viewed by others, you see that they will be seeing the lacuna which I am not able to see. So they suggest some modifications, and I modify as suggested, provided I agree with them. It's not necessary that I should always agree with what they say. And then, so they have helped me in upgrading my paper. So I should thank them, but I cannot thank them without their permission. So what I do is, since thank you very much for helping me to improve the status of my paper, I intend thanking you for this. This is how I would like to thank you. Do you agree to this? So I write an acknowledgement and then send it to the person, and only if she or he agrees, I will include it in the acknowledgement, because you need their permission. Because when I publish and when I acknowledge the help of somebody, I am telling the world that my work was appreciated and approved by these experts. So I am making them responsible for my study. Therefore, I should get their permission, whether the wording is correct in acknowledgement, whether they want it to be changed. This is very important. That is ethical, very ethical. Ethical issues, as I told you, a separate lecture is needed for this, or you can refer to on the net. There are many examples of this. You should always explain the disclosure of conflict of interest, acknowledge the pending source, and when you are doing some image manipulation, microscopic slide, you briefly, if you get a photomicrograph and you want to publish that of yours, and you think that changing the contrast or brightness would be better, now you are manipulating the image. But you should do for that entire photograph, not for one portion which you are interested in. That is unethical. You can see Black Hole Science's best practices guidelines on publishing ethics. This is a good, it provides a lot of information. Yeah, check for plagiarism. Get endorsed by all the involved by sharing the final version. So once it is ready, suppose I have co-authors, I show all my co-authors, hey, this is the version which you are going to publish. Do you agree? Yes. Then you choose a format according to the journal that you are going to submit. And never do simultaneous submission, and don't submit the publication for 2 or 3 different journals at the same time. You should do it one at a time. Never do simultaneous submission, and avoid predatory journals. You know what predatory journals are. Don't publish papers in that. So I'm coming to the last slide. This is the last slide. Components of a paper. Title. What is the purpose? The title clearly describes the contents of the paper. That is the function of the title. Then, so once you complete writing, you see this table and then see whether my title, the title that I have chosen, whether it clearly describes the contents of my paper. authors. Ensures recognition for the writers. Yeah, include those who are involved, get their permission. Abstract. It describes what was done. Keywords. Some journals require, and nowadays almost all journals require them. Make sure that the article is correctly identified in abstracting and indexing services. That is the function of the keywords. The keyword that I have written, when that is typed by somebody, it should show, that will be showing many papers, but your paper also should feature among the papers that have been chosen by the search engine. What is the function of introduction? It explains the problem that you have dealt with. The methods clearly explains how the data were collected. The results, the function of the results is to describe what was discovered. And the discussion justifies, that is, it discusses the implications of the findings, the importance of the findings, and what is existing knowledge on that subject, and how does your paper strengthen that knowledge or contradicts that knowledge. Acknowledgement, make sure that those who helped you in the research are recognized. References, sorry, ensures that the previously published work are recognized. So that is the brief lecture on how to go about writing a research paper for publication. I'm sure that most of you know many of these things, but as I told you earlier, when I began the talk, you should have an open mind, and so that you get something that is that you haven't thought of by listening to some of these lectures, and by referring to the some of the citations which I indicated and the books, so that you improve on your work, make your publication a successful one. And you know, it is a competitive world now. The more citations your paper gets, for the right reason, that is, you are satisfied, and at the same time, it also means that your work has actually helped in improving the facet of work that you have done. So that's important, and that's how we should design our work. So the work should be designed even before you start the work. You look at the related work in the field and then choose what are all the gaps. Well, these are all the gaps in this type of study. Okay, which gap I can address depending on my specialty and the equipment and the strength of people that I have in my lab. Which one I need for which answering which question, or for filling which gap I need collaboration. If so, which field of collaboration I need. You can decide all that, create a hypothesis, and then propose the hypothesis, go ahead, work, get the results, and describe it, try to describe it in the way that one of those models of how to write the paper. And then this way, instead of planning and directly doing it, if you plan it this way, the success of publishing will increase greatly. So with this, I stop my talk. I thank you all for listening, and my sincere thanks are due to Dr. Bele Damodar Shanai, CSR, National Institute of Oceanography, for giving me this opportunity to give this talk. I'm really happy that he invited me for this second talk in this MycoAsia class. Thank you very much, Dr. Shanal.
Thank you, Professor Suri. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation and a typical Professor Suri way, mixed with, wit, humor. I'm still laughing about, electrophoresis by monkeys, and whether the eye disappeared or the pain disappeared. Very nice. I mean, you mentioned about many interesting stuff, actually, including title, how the title could be or should be. One of the titles I remember is like taxonomic triage and poverty of phylogeny. And the title is quite poetic, and the writing, even the paper was also, is also very beautiful, written by Quentin Wheeler, who actually talks about what taxonomy should do, or what taxonomy needs.
Yeah.
And why the phylogeny is not the answer for everything in taxonomy.
Yes.
So actually, that title was so impressive and very catchy. Actually, I remember that when you mentioned about the tips, when you were sharing the tips, what kind of titles you could have. Thank you very much. Now we will let the audience ask questions. People who have questions, please raise your hand. We'll follow the queue system. Then we'll go to the chat box. Actually, Mr. Arvind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. So it was a very grateful, insightful talk, sir. I learned a lot from your lecture. Starting with my first question, sir. So it is good to mention the negative part of our work in the article. If it says like, is the conclusion is the right place to say, or in the result itself we can place our negative part?
It would be nice if you can, make a mention of that in the discussion.
Descriptions, okay.
Yeah, the discussion, and
okay.
It'll be really good when you mention that. So
okay,
you're saying this is what we have done, but there are gaps here, and we did find one or two negative things. So that's shows that not only you're frank, but you're also identifying gaps which people can improve on. And you don't give an opportunity for the reviewers to reject your work based on that.
Okay, fine. So with the second question, as we authors, when we do an experiment and analyze the data, we analyze and interpret in a different manner what we represent in the paper. As a graph we represent, but we interpret in the values in the tabular form. But in the same case, when we give interpretation of our result in a different manner, the new audience will fail to understand the new upcoming style of the format. So in that case, the audience are stuck towards the older format of representation. When the newer representation comes, I feel the authors are getting failed in representing the result what they have been identified. So how do you represent the result? How you analyzed to the audience, sir? Is the same format is required, or the old format need to be followed?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yes. Yeah. So the question is like, when I do the analysis of my result, it's not the same way how I represent in the publication. Same as you mentioned in the result part, you write it's a tricky way where you write what is needed, what to be avoided. But as a reviewer or the audience, when you read the paper, the audience will forget the tricky one, what we mentioned in the result. When they go for the graph or identify the graph or the tabular column, what they never catch up or not be in their mind to see the tricky part. So they just go with the wordings what we give in the result, but never go for the graph what you shown. Even there are a lot of data. So, but how we can give a whole sum of what we thought to the audience in the graph?
Well, what you say is the fault of the reader.
Okay.
You can't help. However, I have a set of data which I want to present. Now, the data can be presented just
Okay.
in sentences,
Okay.
and or some of it can be presented as a table, or the
Yeah.
same can be presented as a graph.
Hmm.
So, what is it that I choose?
Okay.
When should I choose a table?
Yeah.
When should I choose a graph?
Yeah.
So, both are going to represent your data, but which one would be more eye-catching? That is what the idea of publication, right? You want
Yeah.
to make people know what you have done. So
Mhm.
there are the same data. One has to decide how I present it. Do I present it as a figure or a graph or a table, or is it just sentences in the results? There are some, what shall I say? Uh, uh, you can't call them rules, but you can call them, very loose, let us say, loose rules,
Okay.
which determines, which tell you this data, this type of thing would be better if you present it as a figure or as a graph,
Okay.
which
Okay.
one better as a table.
Okay.
So, yeah, it depends on the kind of data that you have accumulated. And when you choose the graph also, you should choose what type of graph would be a better thing. That
Okay.
depends on the data. Yeah.
Okay. Fine, sir.
Uh,
Got it, sir.
once you present them in a proper form, and once it is
Yes, sir.
accepted and published, it's not your
Okay.
collaboration anymore.
Okay,
The
sir.
readers can be of different types. I may be a
Okay.
reader who was unable to understand what is the. You have made it very simple.
Okay.
Otherwise, the publisher would not have accepted. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Sachin Rajput, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, sir. My question is, let's say X protein causes disease, and in introduction, how many references should I add in order to make that argument or statement in the introduction or what is that called, discussion part?
Say, the references,
Yeah.
whether you're going to cite them in introduction or whichever part of your paper.
Yes,
The
sir.
most important point is the references should be relevant to what we've done. Okay, and so there could be references which are bordering on things which may not actually fit your work, so you avoid them, and then choose the one that you see. What is it that I have stated, and the work which earlier somebody has done, and the one that fits what you're stating. That is more important. And I would say, supposing I find 3 good references for this, to support whatever I have said. And after reading those papers, you find that all the 3 are equally good. I could choose. Then it's better to choose the latest one, and then also to see if the journal is a good, well-known journal, not some obscure journal which cannot be obtained by others even on the internet. So those are that you can restrict the number. Say, for example, I'm working on endophytes. The moment I write on endophytes, for even every sentence, I may have some really 20 references. There are people who have worked extensively on endophytes. So I choose the well-known people who have done already some really good, relatively good work, and then people who are published in very good journals, and then of the publications that fit my description, I mean, where I want to cite, the more recent ones that we can decide.
Okay, so first thing is, it should be a popular one, and it should be cited by many more people,
No,
right?
no. First thing is, it should be most relevant. It can be even old one, but it's relevant to your work. So therefore, first thing is
Yeah,
that.
sir.
Or
Yes,
then
sir.
comes the other.
Okay, sir. And regarding discussion part, I want to know if I'm finding something that this molecule causes inhibition of certain protein. And some people have also reported that this molecule causes inhibition to this protein, but they haven't reported the depth of inhibition, that mechanism of inhibition by such and such amino acids are involved and such and such bonding is involved. So in order to make relevant statement of my found findings from my experimental data, do I need to make that statement, these people reported that this molecule is inhibits this protein, that's all, right? And I have found something more, like this these amino acids are involved or something. So is that so simple statement would do the work?
No, see, in fact, excuse me, I'll be back in a minute.
Yes, sir. Hello, can't hear you, sir.
So you say that, see, what you mentioned it should find a place in your abstract, in your last sentence of the introduction. You say that even though people have worked on this, they have shown that inhibition of this particular protein is done by the whatever journal, I mean whatever molecule, but and then others are not, I mean, it has not been known about the mechanism. Our work fills that gap, or it shows the mechanism. So it can be, it should be in the abstract, because that makes people know whatever work you've done. It should be the last sentence in your introduction. And also in results, you don't have to mention it. But when it comes to discussion again, you highlight that point, saying that people have done this, others have done this, but this information is not available. Therefore, our present work shows this.
Okay. We will grow on their argument that up to what point they have reported, and then we will report in a in a chronological manner, right?
Right. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much. Good day, sir.
Thank you.
Rajeshri, please.
Hello. I want to know, please explain the concept of conflict of interest in simple language. Please explain the conflict of interest concept in simple language. And
please explain what? Sorry, the conflict
of interest.
Interest. Oh, okay. So, conflict of interest is where there are many issues. One is when, let's say, I'm working on I'm showing that some compounds which I extract from some microorganisms are able to inhibit the growth of some pathogenic organism or something like that. So when I say there is no conflict of interest in this, means I am not, first point, I'm not like explaining my results not because I am in an employment of some people, some company or something, which is, you know, doing this, identifying these medicines. So there is no conflict of interest, and then there is no conflict of interest when it comes to publication with reference to whether I'm funded by some funding agency. So I am not, my work has, the results that I am publishing has nothing to do with directly or indirectly with that agency. So it is the work which is free of their influence or whatever it is. Similarly, there is no conflict of interest with my aims of the institution. Where I am employed, they may have certain aims. they may have some, what do you call it, aims, and I'm not going against them. There's no conflict of interest. And then when it comes to the subjects that you have used, if it is a medical study, I've used patients. I've got their permission and then done it. So there is no, technically, when you say no conflict of interest, it means that there is no question of influence by anybody or any organization or funding agency in that meeting. You can all, if there is a conflict of interest, you can state, I am been funded by this agency, and this work has been funded by that, and still the work was carried out under the, let us say, principles and things like that. So it depends on the type of work that you do. It depends on what methodology you have been using, and who is funding your research, and where you work. Each institution has its own what do you call it, general principles. So I'm not going against it. So that's the way.
So it basically means any commercial interest. The conflict of interest basically means commercial interest.
Not only commercial, yes, you can say that. Yeah. When it comes to publications, it can mean commercial interest as well.
Yeah. And I want to know one more thing, that is, should we really call these research articles research papers, since many of them are not printed on papers, instead they are published in PDF format. So is it more appropriate to call them as research articles than research papers?
They are. See, this article is a very loosely used term. Yeah, papers and articles are interchangeable. That's what I found. When you can say research papers, research articles, yeah, there's not a big difference. I was thinking that original research is research papers, and then research articles could be, opinions or letters to editors and things like that. But I find that these words are interchangeable. People use article for even original research. So it is not a strict rule anymore.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Dr. Balia, please.
Sorry.
Namaskar, sir. First of all, I congratulate to organizer and also in simple way. Sir, my question is that I am being an agriculture person. The basic question is that different journals are giving the different impact factor and impact score, and in agriculture the NAS rating is also there. So I want to know what is the difference between impact factor and impact score, and how do we understand the real impact factor of the particular journal, because most of journals they are calculating their own impact factor. So how can we decide which journal is better impact factor?
There are methods. See, you should see the impact factor given by. Okay. Shanai, can you think of?
Clement, SCA.
Scopus.
Thomson Reuters.
Sorry.
Thomson Reuters. SCA journals, right?
Oh yeah, right. So such endorsed impact factors should be, journal with such factors should be chosen. If a journal gives its own impact factor, that is where you should differentiate between all this cottage industry journal, as I call them, or journals which charge money for publications. Well, it is almost now common. There are good journals which still charge, but then you have to be very careful in choosing the journal. So do not depend on journals which have that which project their own impact factors. No, You should use a really good platform to know the real impact factor of a journal. And it is very easily available. You just have to type impact, the journal name, and put impact factor. Scopus and those things will tell you whether the real impact factor is what.
Okay, sir. My second question is that in agriculture, being I am a plant pathology, so sometimes the new disease is reported first time in particular crop. So there is a only good photograph and morphological study is there, molecular study is there. Particular statistical data is not available. So in this way, how can we present our research paper being a first report of the disease or the pathogen in particular crop? Because statistical data is not there.
The statistical data is not essential for every study, right? It depends on what question you ask. I mean, supposing I'm going to report a new disease, if I'm able to prove by Koch's postulate that it is causing the disease, and if I show the symptoms, and then if I give the photomicrograph of the organism and identify it by good methods, microscopic or molecular, then prove that it is a pathogen causing a disease, and then do some experimental studies on the percentage of infection when you spray and things like that. I think every study does not demand a statistical analysis. You need to do an analysis, a statistical analysis, when you have a let's say a large sample size, which and you want to the question that you ask, that is more important. Based on that, you choose the type of statistical analysis that you would like to do, and then which fits the question that you have asked. The same data can be analyzed by different statistical methods, but which one should I use? So depends on what question you ask, and then which is the best analysis that fits the question that you have asked. And then how to interpret the result. That's also important, because statistical analysis nowadays have no meaning. You just have a lot of data, and then you put it on the net, and you can get every data that you want. But what is the one that you choose and that you want? What is it that you want to interpret based on the data? So you should choose the right analysis for the type of question that you ask. So in the statement that you made, I don't think there is a need for any statistical analysis unless you want to show that if I am using an inoculum of this particular size, so many cells per ml of my suspension, and I am spraying the plant, and how many plants get infected? That type of study, if there are a number of things that are included, then maybe analysis, statistical analysis would come in. So depends on the work that you do, whether an analysis, statistical analysis is needed, and what type of analysis that you do.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Bilal, please.
Thanks, sir, for such a very good session. The whole session was knowledgeful for me. I want to ask you two questions. You have mentioned in your presentation predatory journals. Can you, sir, please mention these journals, which these are? As a beginner researcher, I want to know these predatory journals. Thank you.
No, I'm sorry. I could make out what you said, maybe because of the lag in communication. Can you repeat?
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, right?
Sir, you have mentioned in this slide, which is presenting on the screen, there are some predatory journals. Can you mention these journals?
Oh,
so that I...
There are many. So what we mean by predatory journals are those which are run by people who would, charge you for publication. Not all charging journals are predatory. No, predatory journals are those which don't have any. Let us say they don't care much. It's more a business thing, and the peer review system is really bad. So I have written a short note in Current Science about this thing. The title of that is, it's a very short article, peer review or mere formality. So I give examples there. I am a mycologist. My field of study is mycology. That too, even in mycology, there are different fields. I am not an expert in, molecular mycology. I'm just an ecologist. So I would like to, if papers, if papers are sent to me for review, and if they have something to do with, if they are pertaining to ecology of fungi, to an extent taxonomy of fungi, well, I'll be a good reviewer. I mean, I can fit that. But the papers that have come to me are something which are totally different. So from these predated journals, they don't care whether the editor sends the paper that has been received to the right reviewer, who is an expert or who is an expert in that particular field, to do the reviewing. But in peer-reviewed journals, they don't care. Sometimes they don't even review. So they just say, oh, your paper has been accepted. Send the money, we will publish it. Don't go in for such paper, because these journals are not, they are not counted by others. So even your publication is a waste. So those are, yeah, you should choose good journals and then.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, my second question is that should we choose a journal that is publishing our paper free, or second, which is charging to publish our paper?
Well, initially the rule was choose journals which do not charge, because they are not predatory. But now we find that even many journals charge page charges and things like that. So, but then if they are good journals, well known, with a lot of with good impact factor, then it is okay. And if you can afford it, it's okay. You can publish that. But be careful in finding out whether it's a good journal or one of those. There are many journals which begin with the, that journals called International Journal of, but they're not international. They're just somewhere in the, you will find in some place there. There's one or two persons will be involved in inviting all this, and then they just say, we have reviewed it, it's good. Just get the money. Don't fall for such journals.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Dr. Sudeep Nagamangalam, do you want to ask your questions, or do you want me to read out from the chat box? Okay, Sudeep, please ask your question.
Hello, I'm audible.
Yes.
Firstly, I thank to all MycoAsia and Belly sir and sir. Excellent presentation. I'm a beginner in a research area. Thank you so much. It's a very, very informative session for me. And my question is, sir, how to detect a good impact factor for a research genre? It depends only totally impact factor. How can I identify a good research article and good research journal? Because my guide and so many researchers I saw कि आपका impact factor क्या है जर्नल का, आपने कैसे डिसाइड किया ये जर्नल कैसा है, आप कैसे पब्लिश करेंगे कि ये अच्छा जर्नल है आपके आर्टिकल के लिए. So many queries, so I could not identify कि what is impact factor and how will identify a good journal for a fast publication. Kindly explain, sir.
Yeah. My own personal feeling is too much importance is being laid on impact factor. See, the higher the impact factor, it means it reaches more people have read it, and that's right. But as the impact factor increases, then it's getting more and more difficult to publish in such journals. And they start charging. That is not only that, their rejection rate will be very high. So it should not deter you from trying to publish in good journals. So what I would suggest is, when you have the results ready after preparing the paper, while preparing the paper, you would have looked at the references in the similar field. Definitely you need them for citing in your whatever introduction or materials method, and also in discussion. So you would be knowing where many of these people are published, and when you read the paper, you get to know about the journals that are there. And so the the best way to go about, in my opinion, is you first find out. I mean, you just know whether you can afford to pay for paid charges, even if the impact factor is very good, because it's very difficult, because they charge in US dollars all these journals wherever they are, and if you are going to publish a paper which is just 4 pages, you may have to spend nearly 1 to 2 lakhs, which I think is impossible. No institution would bear that charge, and personally it will be too much for a normal individual. So you can avoid such journals even though the impact factor is very high, and then you can scale down. But there are good journals which don't charge and their impact factor is high, and there are good journals which impact factor is not high, but they are being read by people. So you can choose, and then among maybe you can choose, say, 3 or 4 journals. But what you do is, among the 3 or 4, you choose one journal and submit your paper to that. And there are many things when you submit to be considered. There are some journals which are really good, but which take relatively long time for publication. I would cite Current Science. It's a very good journal. Why? Because it is freely available on the internet, and you don't have to pay anything. And it is read. It is perhaps the only Indian published journal from India which is widely available. It's free on the internet, so people could refer to that, and it gets cited. But there is one problem with that: it takes nearly a year for your paper to get published. So there are such journals. There are journals which publish your paper faster when they are accepted. So you have to decide between all this and then choose a journal and submit. And in the meanwhile, it takes some time. Even for a fast publishing journal, it takes some time. In the meanwhile, you also format your paper to the second journal that you have chosen and keep it ready. So if you're lucky, if the paper gets accepted in the first journal, good. But if it is rejected, if they ask you to modify, go ahead and modify. If it is totally rejected, you're already ready with the second journal, then you can shoot it with the second journal. But so the choice of journal is based on the popularity of the journal, which is impact factor. Second thing is whether it involves money or not. Third, how fast they publish. So these are the things that now, because there are so many, there's a lot of competition even among journals, international journals. So you have to decide and you have to choose. I have hardly published any paper in a journal which asks for money, excepting 1 or 2 in 40 years. But I didn't pay for it, so I can't afford. So you can choose. There are very good journals which don't charge at the impact factors. The internet helps you in deciding the journal. Go ahead and choose that. You need to do some basic searching.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. And sir, impact factor is totally depend on the average number of citation. Because I read last week a note on the impact factor, its use, significance, and limitations. And this article mentioned that impact factors depend on the average number of citation. Is it okay, sir?
It depends on the popularity of the journal, which means how many people see the journal. If you look at a journal, they tell you how many people have read the papers, how many people have cited, how many people have read your paper, how many people have cited your paper, and then how many people have recommended your paper to others. All these things are available. So as these factors increase for a particular journal, then its popularity goes up and their impact factor. I don't know how they calculate the impact factor, but there is a method based on which the impact factor is decided.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
The one last question from Saptarshi, then we wind up.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Sir, I have questions regarding the European journal and the Australian journal. So, sir, how could we differentiate between the two journals, citation or impact factor?
The impact factor would be a better choice.
Okay, and sir, recently I have already published a paper on Scopus. So, sir, we have usually seen in Springer the article processing charge is very high. So, sir, if we publish a paper in Springer, or if we publish one or two papers in Springer, so will it be a effect for the industrial people, those who are working in any pharmaceutical industries or any research based labs in foreign countries? Will they be recommending our paper? So because Springer is a very much costly journal.
No, you don't have to publish in Springer journals only for your paper to get noticed. It's not so. There are Springer journals which don't charge. So,
Okay.
yeah, so by paying money, it doesn't mean it gets, there are chances of it getting cited is better. No, I wouldn't think so. My personal experience is I have to come out with certain facts. Since you raised this, I have about 140 plus publications. As I mentioned earlier, I have published only 2 of my papers have been published in journals which have asked for money, and that too because the co-authors were able to manage to pay the money. My citation is H index or something is really decent. So, and it doesn't, therefore it should, and my field of study is also nothing, very, let us say, globally impressive problem. Like I'm not working on, malarial parasite or antimicrobial resistance or climate change and things like that, which are the hot topics of the day. But still, my papers are cited. So it shows that even if the papers are published in journals which are not charging and which are having, let's say, a very high impact factor, and still, depending on the work and depending on your, on your earlier publications, you get cited. This is that's my experience. So you don't have to always choose journals which are expensive.
Okay. Sir, another question I have regarding the book publication. So when we are publishing the book, so what is the, how can we write the ISBN publication? The ISBN publication, is it mandatory for the author to have a ISBN publication?
I don't know about that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Somebody asked a question. They have mentioned it in the box whether they can, whether one can submit a paper simultaneously to 2 different journals. No, that is, you should never do that. It is unethical. Don't do that. You can decide. You can have 3 or 4 journals, one after the other. First you submit where it gets rejected, then you go to the next. Never submit your paper simultaneously to 2 or 3 journals. It's totally unethical.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, actually I promised Professor Suri that we will wind up the session by 12:45 hours. Therefore, I am not in a position to allow this discussion to continue. I'm really sorry about that. But if you are keen to receive the answers for your questions, please send your questions to Professor Suri by email. Actually, I have already shared his email address in the chat box. I would like to thank Professor Suri for enlightening us with this very wonderful talk and insightful comments and very witty humor. Thank you very much, Professor Suri. And we would like to have you again for one more masterclass in the coming months. I hope you will oblige. Thank you.
Of course, Dr. Shanai, it's my pleasure to be to give these talks. And yeah, and personally, as I told you, I appreciate your efforts, and I also like the journal MycoAsia. So yeah, I'll contact you with in my mail over this regarding this journal.
Thank you, Professor Suri. We will let you go now, and please enjoy your lunch and have a nice Sunday there in the beautiful city of Chennai or Bangalore, wherever you are actually.
I'm in Coimbatore.
Oh, you're in Coimbatore. Have fun there. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, now I am going to share the feedback link to the feedback form. Please submit your feedback by next 20 minutes or 25 minutes so that I can consider your request for the participation certificate. And I would like to thank all of you for your very active participation. I'm sorry that I cannot take everybody's questions. There are some pending questions in the chat box. I think it's good to have some pending questions for future, I guess. Thank you so much.